Oh. Hello?
Commissioner, I can hear you. I think we're waiting for the host to come online.
Oh, okay, because I thought I was missing something. I thought I saw Miss Valeria Thomas. I thought they were doing maybe the pledge or something like that, and I was kind of lost in the sauce. So thank you.
If they are, I'm missing it too.
All right, thank you, sir. All
Just
right.
a little silence. Hi, Commissioner Borum. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
All right, how's it
Commissioner,
going?
how are you?
Good.
All right, all right.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call to order our May 14, 2020 City of Palatka Commission meeting. We are going to, at this time, we'll have our pledge and our invocation. I'm going to ask that Vice Mayor Brown lead us in the invocation and the pledge. The flag is affixed slightly over my shoulder. Everyone, please stand for the invocation and pledge.
I touched it. I think it's fine. Dear merciful Father, take care of us, guide us, lead us, and show us how to take care of others. You give us a big responsibility. Give us the wisdom, the courage, and the knowledge to do what we need to do. Help all those who are ill and need help. Help all of the rest of us who are not ill, not to get ill. Help us to make this journey so that we have peace and love, and our town and the country can start up again, and people will be able to work and do the things that they would love to do. Guide us and strengthen us. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. We'll move on to approval of our minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? I'm sorry, before we do approval of minutes, roll call. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Brown?
Yes. Present.
Commissioner Campbell?
Present.
Commissioner Borum?
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill? She's present, she's muted.
Here.
Okay, all members are present and accounted for. Mayor Hill is also here, and we do have a quorum for the record. At this time, we will move on to our public recognitions and presentations. First up, we have a moment of silence in remembrance of Pat O'Neill, Robert Smith, and Melvin Register, all employees or retired employees of the city of Palatka who recently, and so at this time, we would just ask everyone in their respective places, if you would just stand with us and have a moment in silence in remembrance of our loved ones who passed on at this time. Make sure that their memories live on within our hearts. Next up is recognition of retirements. Mr. Holmes, do you want to do the recognition of retirements?
Absolutely. I believe we have a little presentation that has been put together and may be visible on your screen right now. We're recognizing a number of different retirees at the same time today. Holly Harris with 28 years of service to the city of Palatka. I guess that just popped up on your screen is Betsy Driggers with 22 years of service to the city of Palatka. Not sure. Holly Harris with 28 years of dedicated service. For those of you who aren't on Zoom, a photograph of the retirees is being displayed on our Zoom monitor as we're speaking. And first was Miss Driggers, and second is Miss Harris. Next is Mike Lassiter with 23 years of dedicated service. I'll mention that Mike stayed retired for about 4 days before he came back on in a capacity at the police department. Sergeant Scott Reinhold with 25 years of dedicated service. Michael Shazel, or Shazel, I think, with 18 years of dedicated service in the sanitation department. Mr. Lassiter with the police department, Mr. Reinhold was with the police department, Ms. Harris with the finance department at City Hall. And then Lorenzo Smith, who's a 1-year service award. He's still with us, and thankfully, and is continuing, but we're honoring him or recognizing him with a 1-year service award. And at this time, I'll stop, Mr. Mayor, but at the appropriate time, we do need to go back and approve the minutes.
Yes, sir, we will do. And so, again, Mr. Holmes, we thank you for your recognition. Everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any, is there a motion at this time?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as they were.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor and a second by Commissioner McCaskill. All in favor, say aye.
I want to recognize that the minutes were updated to reflect that I was in favor of bringing Ms. Valeria Thomas on, and the minutes have been updated and corrected. So.
Right. And so there were some technical difficulties at that time with getting the speaker unmuted, and so we incorrectly had the tally at 4-1. It was 5-0. And so with that correction being noted, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak briefly about the retirees?
Sure.
Just want to mention that we're honoring people who spent time with the city ranging from 18 to 28 years, which in today's world is an accomplishment in and of itself, gave the city good service. And we're honoring them tonight by mentioning them. We'll be sending out a certificate. And also we have ordered plaques for each of them in recognition of their service, which we'll get to them when COVID permits or by delivery. And with that, I meant to say that earlier. I appreciate you giving me a second to say that now, and I'll stop with that.
No question. And again, we want to congratulate all the retirees on an opportunity to go fishing and sit in rocking chairs, or do as Ms. Thomas is about to do, unretire. So, but again, we definitely want to thank everybody for their service to the city of Palatka. Any comments from the commission?
I'd like to
Yes,
thank,
I have. Go ahead, Ms. Mary.
I'd just like to thank all the folks that have worked here with us. They've kept this city going, and they truly, truly love it. And I want to say that those people who have stayed with us the longest, folks married don't stay together that long sometimes. So we know that it's a gift of love that they have given this city, and we hope that they'll enjoy their retirement.
Right, Commissioner Moore.
Yes, I mean, I just like to recognize the amount of years that each one of those individuals gave. I mean, we had 4 individuals. I think it amounts to about 91 years of service. Um, I really like to thank each one of them for giving their dedication and commitment to our city, and thank their families for allowing them to be part of the city and provide the services for the citizens that we serve. Um, I want to challenge our new city manager as it relates to this type of departure from our city as it relates to the services that we're allowing to walk out the door, not the service, but the institutional knowledge, I would say, that it's going to be hard to fill those gaps. I know there's going to be some voids, some hiccups maybe, but we're going to challenge you to kind of put something in place so that, you know, we can have people who succeed these individuals or what have you. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. I thought you were going to challenge him to stay 28 years.
I don't know about that one.
All right. Anything else from the commission?
I'd like to say thank you as well for over 20 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Palatka. And again, like Commissioner Borum said, to the families, oftentimes we forget about the families who sacrifice time spent with their loved one due to them providing services to the city of Palatka. Again, we thank you again for your dedicated services, and enjoy retirement.
And I just want to start off by saying thank you as well for the services provided. I share the same sentiments as the rest of the commission, and definitely thank you to the families. I can attest to families sacrificing their time for us, you know, those that dedicate their time in the workforce. So thank you again for all of your services. And as Commissioner Campbell said, enjoy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to our Student of the Month for March 2020. With all the things that are going on, we wanted to make sure that we still kept some continuity in recognizing our kids, even through distance learning. We've got a number of educators who are on the commission as well, but we wanted to make sure that we play catch up and that we recognize all of our Students of the Month, and we continue to really just sing our praises to our youth and to our educators for the work that they've done. And so Ms. Courtney Tillis has been working on this to make sure that our Student of the Month presentations will continually meet the expectations for our young people.
Do you want to talk about it, or you want me to talk about it?
You got the photos up? Moving on for Browning Pearce Elementary. Browning Pearce Elementary, Kinsey Lusk. Children's Reading Center Charter School, Annabelle Butler. James A. Long Elementary School, Shatira Edwards. Should be known that I butcher at least 3 names through this every time. Kelley Smith Elementary School, Sam Duran. Sam Duran, that's one. Mellon Elementary School, Michaela Crawford. Moseley Elementary School, Lexus Passmore. For our middle schools, CL Overturf 6th Grade Center, Cameron Helms. Jenkins Middle School, Crystal Sweat. Putnam Academy of Arts and Sciences, Tayana Lewis. The high schools, E.H. Miller School, Justin Rowlandson. Palatka High School, Imani Sapp. Commissioner Campbell's niece, Putnam Edge High School, Austin Shiflett. And so again, we want to congratulate all our students of the month, no differently than what we would do. Commissioner Borum, I miss having you with me as we do Student of the Month. It was Vice Mayor Brown's turn this time. So Vice Mayor, do you have any words for our students as they're looking on YouTube Live at this time?
You always talk about what your school, what your teachers said to you when you learned. Well, I went to a school for young ladies, and our motto was good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. And so if you follow those lines and do it, you do what the mayor says you need to do and what you are.
Great words from Baldwin Haven. And so again, as usual, Commissioner McCaskill, you can attest to it. My third grade teacher, Ms. Green, would often have us start our day out. We started every day out the same way, and we do Student of the Month the same way each time. And we start out every day by saying, I am somebody. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it because I am somebody. And each one of these young people that we recognize today, you're somebody special, you're somebody wonderful, you're destined for greatness. And we want you to understand that even through the times that we're going through now, we'd be remiss if we don't recognize you, and we applaud your efforts. We applaud what you're doing at this time and continually pushing forward in education and in citizenship. And the city of Palatka is absolutely proud of you. And remember that you are somebody, and don't let anybody tell you anything any differently. So let's give a round of applause for our students. That's our first virtual clap. Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. And our public comments, we're going to be handled in 2 different ways today. We have a dial-in number for everyone, and our dial-in number is 386-329-0100, extension 230. So anyone that wants to call in for public comment, you can do so by dialing in, or you can hit the chat function on your YouTube Live video. And by chat, we will try to recognize your question so that we have everyone there. So anyone who has a question at this time, please feel free to dial in again to 386-329-0100, extension 230, or ask your question through the chat function on YouTube Live. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment, and this is just public comment as it relates to general public comment, not items on the agenda. Is there anyone here who has a question, who has something for public comment at this time? Again, 386-329-0100, extension 230. We'll give a couple seconds for the phone to ring. Do we have anything in the chat, on the chat screen? Because I can't see it. Seeing no questions at this time, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to our agenda, to item 3. Item 3 of the agenda is the consent agenda. And on the agenda, on the consent today, we have items A through J. Are there any items on consent that you wish to have removed at this time?
I'd like to talk about 3B.
Are there any items besides 3B that we wish to have removed at this time?
I'd like to talk about 3A.
Is there anything else?
Motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items A and B.
There's a motion on the floor to approve with the exceptions of A and B.
Second.
There's a second by Vice Mayor Brown. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 3A, it's to adopt resolution number 2020 R44, authorizing a TD Green Space Planting and Distribution Award agreement of $20,000, 100% grant funded.
I would just like for Mr. Griffin to kind of tell us a little bit about it. I had looked at, talked to him about replacing the trees along Highway 20, where they took up some old beautiful trees along Highway 20 when they surfaced the road and put water and sewer lines in. And I wanted to know if some of that could be used for doing some of those kind of things in our city to make it look good when people come into our town.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes, Mayor. Commissioner Brown and I spoke earlier, and she had the great idea of trying to allocate some of these funds to some tree plantings along the State Road 20 corridor in the downtown, specifically 9th Street. I did tell her that I thought that was possible under the terms of the agreement. Ms. Tucker's done a good job working with TD on making that very flexible, so the city has the option of just planting in the downtown area, not on a specific road. To do so, we would need to work with DOT, which we can do. We've done before. So thank you, Commissioner Brown, again for your suggestion.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I understand a motion.
I make a motion that we accept A.
Second.
Motion second by Commissioner McCaskill. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item B, item 3B, adopt resolution 2020 R45 to allocate funding to participate in Positively Putnam program at $750 per month.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know we had a presentation on last meeting. We didn't generate a whole lot from that, but I'd like to understand, I guess, from a standpoint of budgeting standpoint, I know it's split across 2 fiscal years at $4,500 per year, but just reading and looking at some of the things from our finance director, I just, I think, I don't know if that's a good time. I think the project is a good project to use, but I think we're in an economic downturn at this time, and I don't know, our budget is tight. And I know for a fact we're looking good, maybe coming in. We got 4.5 months left. We got about Avalorum. We're going to probably look good on that for the most part, but I think we're going to get hit pretty hard from a sales tax standpoint, from income coming in from sales tax due to all of the businesses being impacted or what have you. So I think if we did something along the lines of what would it look like for us in 5 or 6 months down the road, based on a 3-month impact from this COVID thing, where a lot of businesses shut down and not a lot of money being spent. I just kind of find it hard to just give out $9,000 for this project, but I would just like to take it for a vote. That's just my opinion at this time, but I mean, we can have anybody else, whoever may have comments, but I just like to take it for a vote.
Any other comments from the commission?
I'm kind of concerned about that too. I want to make sure that those dollars, and I see that a lot of it's being done with the newspaper, and there are a lot of other ways. Is that the best possible way for us to spend that money, or is there other avenues that we can go to? And I'd like to see it put on hold for right now until we come out of this epidemic.
Okay, I would be interested in hearing from Logan.
Well, I think I'll make my comment before then. I think one of the things we got to look at is Positively Putnam is a $9,000 program, and as Commissioner Borum said, it's $4,500 that's coming out of 2 different budget years. And where we are, yeah, we may see some deficits as it relates to our gas tax. We may even see some things change as it relates to sales tax with the Better Place plan. We've got companies out there right now who've had the best years and the best quarters of sales since COVID's hit that they've had since they've been in Putnam County. We're seeing a lot of people spending money. That stimulus money is being spent by a lot of these folks that's out here. I understand where we are from the economic downturn. we don't see the reality of us laying off workers. We do understand that we're going to be cautious with the numbers. And I don't see where $9,000 is going to make or break us as it puts us in place. One of the things that we've been conscious of is really making sure that we begin to push positive stories out in the community. And of that on our own. I think partnering with the newspaper along with these other organizations, including the county, the chamber as well, puts us in a position where we do just that. We ensure that the positive stories in Putnam County will be at the forefront of the media, as well as pushing out additional goodwill throughout the community. So we always talk about writing our own narrative. This is the perfect opportunity for us to do that. And quite frankly, I think it looks bad when the city of Palatka is not on board with the other governmental entities inside of the city that are pushing forward with Putnam County at this time. We're always a leader as it relates to what we do in Putnam County. And I think this is another opportunity for us to lead and begin to push out the good news, as opposed to some of the other stories that are always at the headlines. And I think the Palatka Daily News has a novel idea in doing so. And we should be conscious of the fact that we would rather be stewards of good news than be a part of the tabloid.
Well, I totally agree with that too. I mean, I totally agree with that. But again, we've had a number of partners that we dealt with this year. I think we provided Mr. Studer with some funding. I don't know if it was $2,500 or $7,500 or whatever toward the program to help promote downtown businesses along with everything else. We up the SBDC's money about $20,000 from 10 to 20. We also, I think we still give the chamber about 5,000. And but the only thing I just had a concern with was just the budgeted piece. It was not a budgeted item, and I just rather, I guess, vote on it or whatever, so we can. I'm not saying it's not a good program. I just rather vote on it.
And can we, I always ask, can we afford it? I think once we talk to hear from Logan, some of us will probably make up our minds then if it's something that we feel like we can afford.
Okay, for $9,000, we're in a bad spot. Ms. Becker, can you respond?
Hi, yes, commissioners, I want to first thank you for being so cautious about all of your spending. So of course, I appreciate that. Looking at the figures, we're only mid-May, so I really have to get April and May's figures in as far as revenue distributions from the state agencies to be able to see what economical impact COVID has had on our city. However, we are seeing that some of the sponsorships that we typically do, some of the roundtable events and different things like that, we are not doing because they have canceled those events. So there is money in the budget that I can reallocate. We just have to be aware that the contributions that we typically make to the community will be reallocated for this purpose for this fiscal year. And then going into next fiscal year, I can make sure that I have this line item in there so that you can see it.
So in a nutshell, we're able to do it. It's just that we're not going to be able to contribute like we usually do to the community.
Correct. I would just say that the dollars would be reallocated for this purpose. And then if there was anything else that you all wish to do, say, in August, there's an event or some sort that comes up that you all wish to attend or have tables or that sort of thing, we would have to come back and figure out where to reallocate other funds from. So right now, I would say that we're good as far as reallocating some lines for this. I just want everybody to be aware that, going forward, that's where that money is going to come from.
Thank you, Logan.
All right, well, thank you for the clarity.
Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion on the floor. The second, is there any further discussion on the motion?
Question.
Questions called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4 of the agenda. an ordinance accepting IRS changes for Palatka Police and General Pension as recommended by the respective pension boards for first reading. Is this second reading? This is second reading, right?
I thought that item was pulled. I apologize.
On my agenda, it is pulled.
Okay. It's not on mine.
Updated it after I printed them
Okay.
all out.
Okay, so we're pulling item 4, and we're moving on to item 5 of the agenda, which is a discussion on 4th of July fireworks celebration. Mr. Griffith, you want to take it?
Yes, sir. We're looking for direction from the commission on the annual 4th of July fireworks celebration. Considering everything going on right now, we want to hear where you want to head with this. Recommendation from staff is to postpone indefinitely. I can tell you that myself and Ms. Tucker have been in contact with the low bidder, and they have informed us that to do a show using a barge, they would need to know by June 1st, and to do a smaller show off our dock, they would need to know by June 15th. So those are kind of your drop dead dates if you're thinking, when do we have to make a decision if we can still have a show.
Any discussion from the commission?
I have a
Boardman,
question,
you're
Mr.
muted,
Mayor.
Commissioner. I'm sorry. I'll get Commissioner Boardman, and I got you next, Mr. Holmes.
Okay.
Commissioner Boardman.
Oh, okay. If we can possibly have it. I mean, we've always had it. I mean, if there's a window open for us to be able to, explore, I don't see calling it, and we just listen to the rest of the commission. I'm for having it if at all possible, and we just use those dates that you provided. I mean,
For me, I think we have at least one more meeting before we have to make the deadline of the June 1st. But of course, I want to take in consideration the safety of our citizens when doing so. Of course, that month time frame may make a difference in what we're faced with currently with the pandemic, but I would love to hear from our citizens within the next 2 weeks to see what their input is. But again, overall, my main concern is the safety of our citizens. But I feel that no decision should be made tonight, being that we have one more commission meeting prior to the June 1st meeting or the June 1st deadline of the lowest bidder.
Okay, Mr. Holmes.
Jonathan, if I could, Mr. Mayor, ask Jonathan a question. Jonathan, was there a mobilization cost, or call it what you would, that we would not be able to receive back in the event we told the contractor to move forward either with a larger or smaller scale, and then as time passed, we found that we were unable to safely have a fireworks display? Did they give you any idea about whether or not they would have commitments that would occasion costs upon them that they couldn't avoid, but that maybe the remainder of the contract might be refunded to us if they weren't required to actually go through with the show?
Yes, sir. So those dates, the June 1st or June 15th, are specific to them making financial commitments, being ordering supplies to put the show on or ordering the barge. The way the current agreement reads, it only gives the city the option for a rain date. It doesn't speak to a health emergency or a pandemic. The contractor, in speaking to him, he totally understands what's going on. And, he even said he'd be willing to work with us on a later show too. But to your question about the agreement, we would have to put a deposit down the way it's currently structured. And you're better at this than me, sir, but it doesn't look as if we'd get that money back if we cancel.
What's the amount of the deposit?
I believe it's 50%. Ms. Tucker, can you confirm that?
Yes, the deposit's 50%.
Thank you.
So any other comments from the commission? One of the things I'll go ahead and make a comment. I think there are a couple critical dates that you have to look at right now. One is the governor it seems to me he's given it some insight as to what he's anticipating as far as I wholeheartedly believe that Putnam is lagging behind as it relates to COVID-19. Because we saw our numbers coming a lot later than other folks. We saw substantial growth over a 30-day period of roughly 126 cases. And I don't want to rush to where we are overall, simply because when you look at our demographics and you look at the people who are most affected by COVID, we find ourselves, particularly with the health issues that we have in this community overall, we find ourselves with a large number of people being susceptible to COVID in ways that other communities may not necessarily be susceptible as it relates to the at-risk number of people and the at-risk categories of citizens overall, ranging from our seniors over 64 who are considered to be in an at-risk category, as well as the way that we've seen how this thing breaks down from a demographic standpoint. But the other piece is we have to be cautious of how we can actually make sure that we ensure social distancing during these type of events. We know that the fireworks is huge. I don't know if we have the parking capacity or even the means of being able to keep people separate if that was still in place during this time. And I don't think we do, but we have to think about it. Additionally, we've talked to begin preliminary conversations because PYP indicated that they would be looking around Labor Day to do something special with fireworks for Blue Crab, and it may be an opportunity to work jointly with them to be able to bring the citizens something bigger and better at that time. You know, I understand that we all want to do something special for the events that are coming up, but I want us also to be conscious of what's out there. And so if we do decide to go forward with fireworks, we need to make sure that we have a bulletproof plan for social distancing and being able to ensure that we protect the safety of our citizens first and foremost. So with that being said, are there any other comments from the commission?
I'm in favor of waiting. That was a good good point that been made as it relates to the governor's order and the outlook for the next 60 days or what have you. So I think it'll be prudent for us to go ahead and wait until further direction for the safety of our community.
So is there anyone, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move that we wait until we can have some more clarity on whether it'll be safe for our citizens.
Hold on, I've got.
Second.
And so what, when you say wait, Commissioner, are you saying?
But we're talking about, you said the governor, you were looking at how the governor went about doing that. It'd be brought up back after we hear what he's gonna do with us for that.
So are you saying to bring this back to the next meeting, or are you saying to just pull it from, to take staff's recommendation, to pull it indefinitely?
Is that what staff was saying? I didn't think they were saying that.
So your motion is to put it on the next agenda prior to the
And if we don't have it 4th of July, that, like you said, we could have it another time.
Okay, so your motion is to revisit it at our next meeting. Is that as a date certain?
Yes.
Just trying to for clarity. Okay, is that your understanding from the second, Commissioner?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor. I did see, I got a message that there's public comment. We'll open the floor on this item for public comment. Is there any public comment as it relates to this item? Do you have comments at this time?
There is one that pertains to the.
Can they hear you?
There is a comment that pertains to the 4th of July fireworks, and it's from David Parsons. And it's PYP is definitely interested in partnering with the city and the Blue Crab Festival in September for Labor Day weekend. So they're willing to partner with that.
Are there any other public comments?
About the Positively Putnam program.
Seeing no more comments, we'll close public comment.
Your microphone's off, Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor to table this item until the May 28th date. That's what, Commissioner?
That was a second. Earlier I had on the second.
Right, there's a motion, the second on the floor to table this until the May 28th meeting. Is there any further discussion from the commission?
Question.
Questions called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll revisit this in 2 weeks and hopefully we've got more information at that time.
Mayor, before we go on, even with that, if we are to postpone, can we come back? I know Jonathan said with the possibility of moving to the Memorial Lake, whichever, with the PYP, but other options that may be, that we may be able to look into as a city.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And if anyone has any additional suggestions, just bring those forward. Present them to Mr. Griffith, Ms. Tucker, or Mr. Holmes or someone, and let them see what they can do to kind of bring that forward. So we're definitely looking for any ideas, even from the public. If you have any suggestions, leave them on the Facebook page or either in the chat so that we can explore those options as well. Mr. Holmes, you have something? Okay, we'll move forward with item number 6, consideration of contracts. First up is the contract for Donald Holmes as city manager. So, Ms. Robinson. I think she's in the room with Vice Mayor. I'll go ahead and at this time take I'll just go ahead and take the item. So everyone there's under our item, our tab 6, we have the contract for Mr. Holmes to be employed as our city manager. It's a 9-page, 10-page document on the contract. Very similar to our standard contracts that we typically have. Are there any questions from the commission as it relates to this contract? Any concerns as it relates to the contract that we have in place?
I don't have any issues or concerns. I read it, and if he's in agreement with it, I'm good with it.
Okay. I will note, if you look at section 2 under term, clause C, just for those who aren't familiar, that part of the contract includes the work-related duties, and the only addition to that we haven't seen in other contracts is the of-counsel relationship with the law firm of Holmes and Young, PA. And just for public information, that part of it, of counsel definition, comes from the Florida Bar. It means that Mr. Holmes, as in taking part as a city manager, will not participate in any legal proceedings on behalf of that law firm or any other entity other than his participation as city manager for the city of Palatka. The council gives him the ability to work in an advisory capacity, but he has agreed that his primary duties and his full-time duties will be with the city of Palatka. And the contract includes a conflict clause that says that he will not do anything that's in conflict with the city of Palatka, and he will not work during the normal work hours with the council group. He's in essence given up his practice to be the city manager at this time. The council clause is put in so that he would be able to still retain the name of the Holmes and Young firm during the time in which it's there, without having to fully close down that entity or sell it to the remaining partners.
Are you looking for a motion, or are you gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna read the contract, or we're gonna look at for a motion?
I'm not gonna read it out. I'll tell you one other part of the contract, just so that we had it, and it's something that actually we brought up before, and that was just the word in section 5. My only suggestion is we take out the word shall and put the word may in there as it relates to the evaluation portion in the first sentence. And so it says that the city commission shall endeavor to review and evaluate the performance of homes. And that says may. What we found was we had this contract actually took into consideration where we had in the past that we had a drop dead date on doing evaluations, and the term shall and may shall locked us into where we were. May gives us the ability to have some flexibility in how we do it. And then the only other part we had in there is where it says in that same paragraph, as we go down, it says any such review shall be subject to a process, form, criteria, format for the evaluation, which shall be established by the city commission with the input from homes. I would want to take out the little section that says with the input from homes. We use the standard ICMA evaluation form. That's what we've typically used in the past. In most places, the employee doesn't write his own evaluation form. The evaluation form is created by the employer. And so I would just want us to be able to have that in place so that the commission actually develops the evaluation form, and that we don't find ourselves in a situation like we had in the past where the evaluation form isn't something that's created by the commission for the purposes of doing evaluation in place. Other than that, the contract is standard. I agree with it. I'm excited about, not excited about Don coming on, because Don's been putting out fires since every day for the longest. And so those are the only changes I would have to that contract. And I got a chance to really double check through it late, and that was it. Those were just there were just technical issues that we had in the contract, but everything else is there. I was satisfied with the council clause and those things that were in place. The contract seems to pretty much lock in all the technical nuances that we have as it relates to this. And it's a contract that Mr. Holmes has done the framework on for many years. So with that in mind, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We're approving it with those changes or without?
A question. You're saying with the exclusion of that, taking that clause out of section 5, right?
Yeah, just the words, I'm not taking the whole clause, just
Just
words.
that part about with input from homes. I just want to make sure
just
that's
that little bit. And changing may to, and changing shall to may. It doesn't change the
part of the
substance.
motion. That's what I just want to make sure of, that we're
Is
clear.
that part
So
of the
we,
motion?
I guess, make sure we note that piece of it, have it noted, and then, yeah, so I make a motion to accept those with the modifications mentioned, from shall to may, and what was the other clause?
With input from homes being struck from the sentence.
With homes.
With input from homes being struck from the sentence.
With input from homes for, what was that?
Evaluation.
Input.
Being struck from the sentence.
I'm breaking up.
Being struck from the sentence.
Okay, being struck from the sentence. It was breaking up a little bit, so I'm sorry about that.
Don, are you agreeable to those terms?
I am.
Okay. And so there's a motion on the floor and a second. Questions called by Vice Mayor Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion opposed, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Holmes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I send
Thank
you
you.
sympathy. I'm gonna send you a sympathy card tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
And so, again, we appreciate that. So again, we're looking forward to this relationship as we move forward with the city. And we're looking to you to bring some continuity to the office.
Are you ready for me to read the caption?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, just for the record.
A resolution of the City of Palatka, Florida, appointing Donald E. Holmes as City Manager of the City of Palatka and authorizing execution of that certain city manager employment agreement dated May 14th, 2020 and effective May 15th, 2020.
So moved.
And just for house, just
Well,
for
that was
house,
just for the record. Okay.
yeah, it's just for the record.
Okay.
And so let's go ahead and go through the steps just so we have it in place. Take your motion again.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor in a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Question.
Questions called, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, 6B, Valeria Thomas is Esquire, City Attorney. Mr. Holmes, I'll let you take this one as your first official duty as city manager.
Thank you, sir. So with my being named as city manager, and I thank you for your confidence and your unanimous vote, I'm going to try very hard to make you very happy that you have entrusted this duty and privilege with me. With that occurring and because of the obvious conflict that would be involved with me also being the city attorney, under our ordinances, the city attorney is appointed by the city manager with the concurrence of the commission. Now, what we have done in this particular case is fashion a contract with Ms. Thomas, which basically names her as an interim city attorney on a month-to-month basis while the commission decides, in conjunction with, I'm sure, us and me and staff, whether it wants to go out for an RFQ or just exactly what it wants to do in order to acquire or to secure the services of an attorney on a long-term basis, or stay with Ms. Thomas, whatever the commission decides. Ms. Thomas has been very easy to work with in fashioning the contract. It would bring her on as a contract service provider, not as an employee. If you've seen her resume, she has a very impressive resume, much government work, when I say government work, I mean work in the field of governmental law, which gives her a heads up and a head start in trying to deal with the issues that come before a municipality. I've spoken with her enough to know that I'm very comfortable with her. And of course I would, so without saying anything further at this point, I'd like to recommend her appointment as the interim city attorney. It's on a month-to-month basis with no set term, and we can move forward from there depending upon the wishes of the commission.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor in a second. You read the caption of the resolution for me, Ms. Tucker.
Of course, what would the effective date be of the contract? Yes, thank you.
Actually, it's a good question, Mr. Holmes. We'll go back, I guess we would go back non-pro-tunc to the day in which she's, will we go back non-pro-tunc?
Yeah, I left those dates blank for the particular reason that I guess I wanted to hear from, or allow the commission to weigh in, but also hear from Ms. Thomas as to what her thoughts were as to the effective date. But, you know, we've been working with Ms. Thomas at least in running various issues by her now for about, I don't know, a week. I guess I've lost track of time exactly, but
Probably since the beginning of the month for sure. We've met with her and had an opportunity for her to get a chance to try to meet with the commission as well. And so at least back to the 1st of May, I would say. Ms. Thomas, you want to chime in? You're on mute still. Hold on, you're on mute.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I'm like Mr. Holmes. I'm trying to figure out the exact day, but whatever the pleasure of the commission is, I'm fine with that. And so, you know, we can just move forward with whatever the commission decides, and Mr. Holmes, of course.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest that we use the retroactive date of May 1st. She's met a few times with both Mr. Holmes and I since that date. And she's actually, and so I think that May 1st would be a clean date for us to use as the start date.
Okay, thank you. A resolution of the City of Palatka, Florida, appointing Valeria Thomas as interim city attorney of the City of Palatka and authorizing execution of that certain city attorney services agreement dated May 14th, 2020 and effective May 1st, 2020.
So move.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
There's a second by Commissioner McCaskill. Is there any further discussion? I'm sorry, before we get to that, is there anyone here for public hearing? We're now up on the floor for public hearing. Seeing no one, we'll close public hearing. Is there any further discussion?
No, I'd like to say how happy I was to meet her, and I'm happy that we will have another female joining us, so knowledgeable. She spent quite a bit of time with me, and that's worth something. So I think letting her get paid for the beginning of the month probably is a good thing, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I couldn't think of a better way of trying Miss Thomas out than to let her ride around with Miss Vice Mayor Brown for a couple of hours. I figure if she could survive that, then she's good to go.
Well, she even talked about how much she liked the town and she might consider moving here. So don't count me out yet. All right.
So that tour was worth it.
I got one comment to make about that. After she had ridden around with Miss Brown, I'm wondering, did she have PTSD yet? I mean,
All right.
okay to perform the duties.
Y'all say y'all love me, but y'all really put it on. That's okay. Mama can take it.
I think she did pretty good. She met with me afterwards and she talked about it. So she survived, and I didn't see her any jitters, or anything. So
Okay.
pretty good.
I had
Mrs.
a
Thomas.
driver. I had a.
Oh yeah, and Teddy was the driver.
Teddy
So
was my son drove us around, so she didn't have to put up with the driving, because I know that's your next comment.
Okay.
I met with her. It was not a formal meeting. I mean, we just did it by a phone call, and I found her to be very pleasant and knowledgeable and very easygoing. I just didn't want to make it a formal thing, and think we got some chemistry there, and I just want to welcome her aboard. So thank you for choosing Palatka, and thank you, represent us well.
Okay, let's finalize the vote so we can make it official. Ms. Robinson? What's the question? There's a question. Ms. Robinson has a question.
The question, Mayor, is Miss Valeria Thomas from Putnam County.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I seen something.
I
pop
again,
across
my mic was. Aye.
Did we get everybody?
Campbell.
Yeah.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner McCaskill slowing the microphone again.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's only during, Ms. Thomas is only doing your items that her mic.
No, you know better, Mrs. Thomas. Ms. Thomas.
Again, welcome aboard. I'll go ahead and give you the floor at this time, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm very excited to accept this interim position as city attorney, and I will work very hard to do my best to represent the city of Palatka favorably. And thank you very much for your confidence in me, and let's get to work.
Okay, Doug. And I guess for some of the folks who are some of the folks in YouTube land who haven't had an opportunity to kind of get a little background, you might just give them a 30-second version.
Okay, my name is Valeria Bland Thomas. I was born in Miami Beach, Florida, graduated and grew up in Miami. Attended University of Chicago as an undergraduate, went to law school at North Carolina Central for my Juris Doctorate degree, and received an LLM from the University of Miami. Go Canes. And I was a long-term employee for Miami-Dade County. The attorney for the police department originally is how I came into Miami-Dade County. Then was promoted to be the general counsel of the Department of Correction. And then I worked at the housing agency as their attorney. So I spent 30 years with Miami-Dade County, and I taught school for a couple of years before I went to law school. So that's Valeria Thomas in a nutshell.
Okay, welcome
Except
aboard.
for I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. That's it.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for accepting this interim position for us while we're in need.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, is our public hearings. We'll push city manager and administrative reports down. Let's go ahead and move into our discussion of the South Historic District Brick Street restoration. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone see the presentation?
No, sir.
Not, he's pulling it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, staff has pulled together some information to facilitate a discussion on the desired, if you will, finished result of the roads within the project area, the current stormwater project in the South Historic TIF District. The first image that you see here depicts where we have existing brick roads, and the bright red dash line depicts the limits of the current construction project. I will note here that under the current contract with 4 Cs, who is performing this work, the 2 brick roads of Kirkland Street and Hotel Street are to be relayed after the installation of the stormwater infrastructure. Next slide, please. What this is a cost per block. When we get to the end of this presentation, we're hoping some discussion will be had on some different alternatives. Simply the removal of asphalt from the brick, of which we've been conducting a trial for the past few days on Dodge Street, is estimated at about $23,000 per block. Please note this doesn't include resetting any utility patches after we remove the asphalt and we find brick missing or low-lying areas that would need to be raised. The second is to resurface with asphalt. There will be an image later in this presentation that shows some roads that we already have in asphalt condition and or we know that the brick is not underneath the asphalt. That is the most inexpensive of all of these at approximately $9,000 per block. The third, the most expensive, which is in the current contract, is the relaying of the historic brick provided by the city. We'll get into some of the pros and cons later, but it's estimated at about $61,000 per block, and you currently have 3 blocks in the contract. Next slide. Okay, I won't go into all the details here. We tried to summarize what we believe to be the pros and cons. I'm sure everybody has their opinion on the aesthetics as well as the cost benefits, but I will lay out that brick roads are more expensive up front than asphalt. Asphalt, which has a life cycle, varies anywhere from 12 to even 20 years, does have to be resurfaced and maintained and will cost more over a comparative life cycle to brick. Next slide. Thank you, Courtney. So this image is just meant to kind of depict what we have, what is the current condition and what are opportunities. And we may want to come back to this slide to facilitate your discussion when we get to the end. It kind of gives you an idea if you're looking for some element of continuity when it comes to aesthetics and treatment, you can see what your options may be. The red, again, is the existing brick roads, and we even depicted the ones on the vicinity of the project area. The blue are those roads that we believe that we can remove the asphalt from the brick road underneath. The orange are roads we have recently repaved. Obviously, we wouldn't want to pull that up. That would be a waste of taxpayers' dollars. Or areas where we know that the brick is removed or it's not there in its entirety underneath the asphalt. Next slide. So just a couple of things I'll leave you with here. I obviously am very concerned about cost and schedule. We are at a critical point in the construction timeline. They are getting ready to construct the curbs. It is extremely important that if there is to be a change made, that decision is made tonight. Critical path-wise, I would need to be in the field tomorrow morning so as to not create a significant delay or any double work on the contractor's part. Again, some things you may want to consider are aesthetics. From staff's perspective, continuity is preferred, but not always necessary. We do consider the historic preservation element as well as how the street will function for the motorists, the pedestrian, cyclists, and whomever is using the street. And another thing which is critical is supply. That picture right there to your left is one of our brick roads. And the way they're installed, we're seeing about a 20% loss due to broken pieces and offcuts. So whenever we harvest brick or reclaim brick from a block, we're losing about 20%. And that'll come into play with an option that we're going to talk about. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Tucker. She kind of led the charge on getting some neighborhood feedback.
Yes, so 148 letters were sent out to residents of the South Historic District. Of that, we got a 22% response from the residents. And of the response, 47% voted to have brick streets maintained, the original, and 53% voted for brick intersections throughout the district. Are there any questions?
When you say 53% now, how many letters you say went out?
148 letters went out. 32 came back, which is 22% of the 148. But of those 22%, 53% voted for brick intersections and 47% for the existing brick road segments.
Wow, but that doesn't sound like a representative good sample. When you talk about a sample set, if you only had 22% response out of the 148, that I wouldn't want to go with that percentage, because it's, even though we say 53% of the with more brick, and that's just out of 22% out of 148. So I wouldn't be comfortable with moving forward with changing the character or the nature of the investments that people have made. We've had a number of people who I don't know if they responded back to the letters, but I think I know we're in a short time window, but I wouldn't be comfortable saying, yes, we need to move forward with whatever, because I don't have an investment in that community, but there are people who have spent quite a bit of money. I mean, quite a few hundreds of thousands of dollars in their community. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with saying yes, move forward with whichever option. But I thought in the original contract,
Commissioner,
they said they will put everything back the way it was.
Commissioner Moore.
I've been hearing different things, so that's just my opinion.
Commissioner Borum, I think once you hear the recommendations at the end of the presentation, it's going to be in concert with what you just told us.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so with that being said, I'll hold off on my comments.
And just let them make the final recommendation. I think it'll be in concert with what you're saying.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The first option is to leave everything as is and what is in the current contract. And that would be that Hotel Street and 2 blocks of Kirkland would end up being relayed with the existing brick. We would still continue with trying to remove some of the asphalt off of Dodge Street, and it may be helpful if you go to slide number 4. Courtney, can you do that, please? That way everybody can kind of imagine what would be complete at the end. Thank you. The second option would be to do a hybrid of what is already in place. The plan that was kind of initiated a couple years ago was that we had hoped this project would coincide with another capital improvement project scheduled for across the railroad tracks in a non-historic district area that does have a brick road. It is a different brick material. It wasn't some of the original brick from the late 1800s, but the idea was to reclaim that brick and use it for road restoration in the historic districts. That project actually was out to bid, and that is in the specifications. Unfortunately, there were things outside of staff's control, timing wise, with the grant funding agencies where they just didn't line up perfectly. However, that option is still somewhat on the table because there are certain road segments that are within that project area that the city could change order into this contract for road reconstruction and harvest that brick ahead of that schedule and use it on these roads in the South Historic District. And I think there was a proposal to use it to do the intersections in addition to what's already in the contract, which would mean using the brick that's already in the district to put Hotel and Kirkland back as they were before the start of this project.
Okay.
So Jonathan, we're talking a total of how many? 6 possible intersections?
Yeah, it's actually 5, Commissioner. No, it could potentially be 7 depending on how much is uncovered. I think what I would propose is that a possible of 7 intersections. If we ran out of material, we would install it in a manner where we worked from one end of the district to the other, though.
And what's the cost possibly associated with that, Jonathan?
Can you scroll back up to the slide with the costs, Courtney, please? I'll use my own. So based upon, I don't have it there, so let me look at my notes here real quick. Okay, based upon the schedule values in the contract with 4Cs, and depending on how much loss we have, I think it'd be somewhere in the ballpark of $11,000 per intersection.
It's like 77,000
Mhm.
or 66,000. I'm sorry. Question: Didn't I looked at that contract or the write-up or whatever? Now, you mentioned something about the project back in 2014, and it would cost additional like 48,000. Is that also included in these numbers?
Commissioner, I don't know what you're speaking to. Do you have any more information about that?
Well, I thought I read something along the lines where there was the project it started back in 2014 as it related to what the improvement would be. I don't think it's the portable water lines. I think it has to do with the relaying of the bricks or whatever. And I think the company, you mentioned something about the company with closed operations or whatever. They didn't have the right equipment, and it would increase the cost about $48,000 additional dollars.
Yeah,
the
I
new
think,
contract-
thank you for that explanation. I think what you're referring to is way back, we were in discussions with a company that had uncovered brick roads or removed asphalt from brick roads in the Orlando area. That gentleman sold his company recently and the equipment was moved out of state. However, we were lucky enough to have a resident put us in contact with another company out of Alabama that has done this one time, and they gave us that estimate of 40, I think it was 47,000 and change to uncover 2 blocks of road. But we've since gotten a better price from a local vendor out of East Palatka.
Okay,
That's
all right. I
removal
was
of
just,
asphalt.
So I think one of the other things is the money, the money used to, if we were doing the intersections to create uniformity within each one of those districts would come from where?
It would have to come from the Central TIF District capital outlay, sir.
And it's what's approximately
Not Central, I'm sorry, South District. I don't know why I said that.
South District's capital outlay funds, roughly 90 to 100,000, about $90,000 in that fund, correct?
Yes, there's 90,000 in capital outlay, and they had 50,000 set aside for River Street improvements, which was for intersections as well.
And some of the capital outlay dollars were also used to replace sidewalks as well. Right. And so we had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Russo from the neighborhood, from the South Historic Neighborhood Association as well. Do you have any more pieces to your presentation, Mr. Griffin?
No, sir, not unless there's questions from the commission.
And so one of the things that we looked at, Commissioner Borum, were the 2 options. And so what we found is there was an overwhelming sensitivity from members who are in that current geographical area where those brick roads are. They make up a large portion of those 22% of responses that you got back. But there's an overwhelming sentiment to basically replace what we took up, which is the bricks. I think in a perfect world, they would want to have an all brick, an all historic brick roads. It's just simply something that we can't afford at this time. And I guess, Mr. Griffith, would you agree that it's not feasible for us to do that at this time?
No, it is not. We do not have enough money for that, sir, nor do I believe we have enough brick and supply to do that.
And so the 2 options that we put out as we were talking to Mr. Russo from the district were really to keep it in keeping with what they had prior to the construction taking place. We know that within the South Historic District, all the infrastructure is set to be completed. And so they will have all new infrastructure in totality within that district. And so we wanted to make sure that we did exactly what you were talking about, Commissioner Borum, which was make sure that we didn't do anything to take away from the aesthetic features of the community, that we kept in keeping with the contract, which was to make the roads back the way that they were prior to the construction taking place. But the other piece of it was the other option, the addition piece, the bonus, for lack of any other term, was to harvest bricks from areas where there was no historic nature per se, and paving would probably be a better avenue for us as we begin to deal with some of the infrastructure aspects there, or in areas where you didn't have residents in the same manner on those streets, and harvest those bricks and come back and later pave those roads as part of the projects that we have in place. And it was to use capital outlay dollars to do the intersections as well in the areas where you have pavement, to kind of create continuity within the district. It should be noted that the executive board for South Historic Neighborhood, with short notice, they wanted to just have the contract in place as it sits. They did that with very short notice, not with the ability to go out and talk to a lot of the membership. The membership's concern was that they wanted to keep the historic nature of the roads that existed, the curbing, certain aspects that are there, and keeping with what they have in place. But I think one of the things you have to be conscious of overall is just cost. And so there's a conversation. I've read several studies. I think one of the most impressive was a study that came from Columbia, South Carolina, as well as a very impressive article that came from Winter Park, which talked about the value of the brick roads. And what we're finding is with those roads, it's a very expensive endeavor, and we're seeing that after that 100-year period, you end up with a lot of damage to those roads if they were not installed properly from the beginning, and which is exactly what we have in Palatka. But I think we have two important options before us and those options are to stay in keeping with the contract, which leaves the brick roads in as they existed before and the paved roads as they were prior to construction, or to add the bonus in and use capital outlay dollars putting in the intersections. And those are really options that we have. The executive board didn't really want to see just crosswalks in that we had kind of depiction of the photograph, but they were okay with the commission just doing the brick roads. My personal opinion is that I think the crosswalks bring an added layer of continuity to the district, and it ties in the brick streets with the streets that have been paved that no longer have the brick underlay, and it just puts us in it puts us in a position where we get kind of the look that you see on Laurel Street with the older bricks, on River and Laurel with the older bricks, and it brings another aesthetic feature. So any comments from the commission based on the presentation that we have and my comments? And then what I'll do is I'll just open it up for public comment. I know we had a number of people who were interested from the historic district in having an opportunity to comment. Just for those who aren't aware, you can also dial in at 386-329-0100 extension 230 and call in and give your comments. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and no action and we will move forward with our action after you make those comments. If not, hit the chat feature and ask your question, and we will respond and give you a chance to follow up with your question during the allotted period. So again, if there are any comments from the public at this time, please let us know. Okay. Any questions that we have at this time? Do we have any questions coming in? Again, the number is 329-0100, extension 230. I don't hear the phone ringing. I don't see the chat moving. We will proceed. Do we have any questions, any comments coming in?
The comment I sent to you in our chat.
Okay. And so the only public comment that I have is from Cheryl Roach that says that the letter sent about brick roads had an introductory paragraph stating that the neighbors need to discourage other community members from stealing bricks. She feels as that is not conducive to get the best positive result. So that's duly noted. And we have had some thefts of bricks during the construction phases. And we've noted those, and we just want to make sure that we all use the best possible behavior as we move forward. Are there any other comments or questions or concerns before the commission? Because I don't have anything else before us. I'll close public comment at this time. Seeing nothing from the commission, I'll entertain a motion. Are the mics unmuted? Because it's quiet.
Okay. I understand. I say we move forward. It's seeing that we really can't afford to stick with the original contract, I say we move forward with the brick intersections, putting the brick crosswalks in.
We can't afford to do the original contract.
So we can.
We can afford it. We can't afford to do the original
From the
contract.
with the capital outlay.
It's already
Okay.
budgeted.
Okay, so that's what I'll move forward with.
So you move that we continue with the original contract?
Original contract, yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to move forward with the original contract. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion at this time?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with the capital outlay, would that be, I guess, in terms from timeline standpoint, how would that work in terms of moving forward with redoing the brick? How long would it take to get those roads back to where they need to be? Would it be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? What?
I think about a
capital
about a
outlay, you
month
gotta
and a
think
half.
about the dollars and how they're allocated.
You mean for the roads that we would take the additional bricks up from?
For what? Yeah, whatever roads that we would be removing the brick using the capital outlay. I know sometimes capital outlay can be, years or whatever as it relates to that funding being.
I think Mr. Griffith, if I'm wrong, you said a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir, that's correct, Mayor. And to simplify things, Commissioner Warren, we would pull the brick up from the road, and then we would begin reconstruction of the road where we harvested the brick at the same time as we're laying the brick in the South Historic District. We have all these schedule of values. It was competitively bid in 4C's contract, so we can change order it in and meet our procurement. But to the mayor's point, it would take about a month and a half.
Okay, we're just basically moving parts. We just moving part from or pieces from one location to another location to. Okay.
On projects that we'd be doing anyway. But I got one phone call. I got a caller on the phone to show that. And so can we patch that call through? Who do we have on the line?
Robbie Carrera.
Okay, Ms. Carrera, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, we can hear you.
You can hear, we can't.
I can't hear.
We can't hear.
Hold one moment, Ms. Corral. Could you not hear that, Mayor?
We can't hear anything. We can't hear it. It's faint.
Okay, hold on, just one moment. Ms. Carrera, 189 Dodge Street, wants to know that because portions of the road has already been removed, what's the game plan to get that corrected? What direction are we moving in?
Can I address that, Mayor? You're muted. I'm assuming you said go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. To Ms. Correa's question, the road has to be removed no matter which direction we go for the installation of the stormwater infrastructure. Even when we have to remove the brick to relay it, we're putting proper base material down. So it's kind of a moot point. There's no correction needed. We're at that critical point in the construction timeline right now.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So
Hear
just
Ms.
for
Carrera? Staff.
Yes, I can. I hear you.
We can hear her better.
I'm sorry,
staff-
but for Ms. Carrera, there's just a delay because she's on the YouTube. So there's a slight delay for her answer.
Okay, so for staff's clarification and my own, since staff's gonna be moving forward to implement whatever decision the commission makes tonight, Mr. Griffith, if you listen up for me, please, to make sure I understood correctly. We essentially came with two options to the commission tonight. Option number one was to simply put the brick streets back in brick as they were when this project started, which is called for under the contract. We had certain brick streets that we started to work on. Option one is to put those brick streets back in brick. So there'd be no change in the surface of those streets. They were brick, they will be brick. It's just that the brick would have been relaid. That's option number one. That would involve no capital outlay from the South Historic District budget. It's already budgeted funds and it's already contracted funds.
Yes, sir.
Option number two would involve putting the streets back in brick, which were brick before the project started, as is called for under the current contract. But there'd be an additional component to the project. That additional component would be to take some bricks up from a couple of streets outside of the historic district and use that additional brick to put brick in about 6 or 7 intersections of streets that are inside the historic district. That would involve funds, the capital funds or capital improvement funds from the South Historic District. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's the funds that were budgeted for this year. Yes.
That would have been the funds budgeted from this year. So one would involve just replacing the brick with the brick streets that have already been in process. The other option would be the same thing, replacing the brick with brick, but then in addition to that, putting brick intersections in 6 or 7 intersections that are within the interior of the South Historic District. The motion on the floor, as I understand it, is to simply go with option number one, which would involve simply replacing the brick streets that have already been basically torn up with the infrastructure improvements with brick. We would not be going into the intersections of other streets within the historic district to brick those intersections. Is that my understanding?
Correct. That is the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you.
And so now we're in discussion with the commission. We'll close public comment. Commissioner Bohr, I think you had a comment earlier.
No, I was done.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? And again, I'll just reiterate that I think that the additional brick intersections brings continuity to the asphalt roads and kind of ties it in well with what you have in the district overall with the paved roads. Is there any further discussion from the commission at this time? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor of the motion? Yes.
That's okay. We're good. What was going on? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to come to the phone lines because you had Carrera on the phone that was delayed. So she's good and everything. So you can go ahead and move forward. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the motion, Commissioner, your motion on the floor stands. We'll call the question at this time. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries by a vote of 4-1. And so we'll continue on with the contract, Mr. Griffith, as written. And you got your, I think that'll help you as far as moving forward with the actions before us.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners, Mayor.
Okay. Next up, I'll keep you on. Are we can you just give us a kind of quick update on potable water line replacement? I know you've been overwhelmed with brick conversations for the last few days.
Yeah, I'll just give some quick numbers so the commission kind of knows where we're at in the phases, what we've spent, what we've completed, and where we're going in the next year. So far, we have 6 miles of potable main line replaced since we started this a couple years ago. What's scheduled for 2020 and leading into 2021 would be another 5 miles if we let the projects as planned. That's great news. That's hitting that 10-mile mark. That's something to celebrate. I think everybody should feel proud about what we've accomplished. And I'll use this opportunity to give Ms. Tucker some accolades at the end of this because she's worked very hard on this effort.
Definitely.
We have $7.8 million roughly from the state revolving loan fund, of which the commission has pledged the debt service out of the utility. and we have been drawing that down. We have, in essence, contractually drawn down 2.5 million of that. The next year will be critical, how we let projects. As you know, we're very careful in how we let these potable projects and how they coincide with other capital improvement projects. And you have a couple of them coming up, that being the resurfacing of St. John's from the railroad track back to Palm, that partnership with the county. That is an old cast iron line, so that will most likely move that up in the phasing sequence, as well as the St. John's Avenue project downtown, and the adjacent area between the South Historic District and St. John's Avenue that's yet to be done, since we were just awarded another $500,000 grant from the district, Water Management District, excuse me. That grant brings our total now on this effort to approximately 2.25 million in grant funds. So that's in addition to that 7.8 million that Ms. Tucker worked so diligently with Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Love those guys, but they're not the easiest to work with sometimes when giving away money. I will also add, actually, no, I believe that is all of my updates, sir.
Okay.
That's it.
And so, again, great job. Great job to both you and Ms. Tucker, as well as the commission on the commitment to replace infrastructure within the city of Palatka, aging infrastructure that went back to 1886 and wooden potable water lines. And so, again, I think we're well on our way to moving forward. And so there is a plan in place, and we are very far ahead as it relates to the multi-stage plan that was put in place. Phase 7 is where we are as we move forward. And so we're just continue to move forward with those and try to increase the infrastructure and turn our orange water to a different color. And so next up, we'll go to our city manager and administrative reports. So on you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you. And thank you again for your trust and confidence in allowing me to help you move forward with the city. I won't take a long time tonight, but I did want to mention a couple of things. Since becoming the interim city manager, which I thought would be a part-time job while I worked some more at my law office, I found that there is no part-time job at the city of Palatka. But I've also been very impressed with a lot of your staff, a lot of our staff. And I would just want to take a minute to call out some people who I saw do a great job this last week. As some of you know, on Monday, a contractor, thankfully employed by the county, not by us, was doing some soil borings on St. John's Avenue along the prettiest stretch of pavement that I think we have in the city, and managed to go into a 12-inch water line, City of Palatka water line, which had catastrophic results in terms of the water line. Our water plant operators, Dave Keene, noticed a substantial drop in the water level of the water tank, which was not normal and signified to him a problem. He notified the superintendent, Ms. Kayla Wiley. She and he immediately took action to boost all of the pumps to try to keep the pressure up. As you all know, if the pressure had dropped below a certain level, it would have required a boil water advisory for the entire city. By taking immediate action and boosting the pumps, they avoided that occurrence, and then began the process of trying to find where the leak was. Ultimately, I think it was reported. I went to the scene, which was on St. John's Avenue, right just about in front of Solaris Healthcare, and already on scene were Mr. Griffith, the fire chief, Rhett McCamey, and they were working to isolate the leak, shut down the pipe, and start the process of salvaging the situation. They did so quickly, efficiently, and in a way that made me very proud that they were our employees. And then Mr. Griffith, myself, and Mr. Grimes went to Solaris. We understood that their water service was interrupted. As you know, they've recently taken some pretty good hits on the COVID issue, and asked if we could do anything to help, even though it had not been our problem that caused their problem. Before it was over, the fire chief had determined that their fire suppressant system was not charged because of the water interruption. And by the way, they had no water to one half of their entire structure. They couldn't flush toilets. They could not do any of those things that are necessary in an assisted living or memory care facility. Showing ingenuity, the fire chief ran a fire hose from a fire hydrant down the street to the fire hydrant in front of Solaris, back charged that fire hydrant, and then put some sort of reducer on there and took a water hose to feed into their bib on the side of their building. And before he left, they were able to flush their toilets, and their fire system, their fire suppressant system was charged. So calling out people for doing a good job. I think that Mr. Griffith, Ms. Wiley, Mr. Keene, Mr. McCamey, the fire chief, and then there were people there with them, of course, but they all did a great job, quickly, efficiently. And now we have a patch the size of a Volkswagen on St. John's Avenue in front of Solaris. But best outcome of a bad situation. So just recognizing them in a positive way. Next, happy to report to you, all of you were aware of some issues that we had regarding reporting of wages of our employees for IRS, Social Security purposes, and also some issues regarding insurance coverage of our employees. Some of those have been ongoing apparently since 2016. We believe at this point been successful in updating records of Social Security and IRS with the income and wage information from 16 to the present date of all of our employees. That's the information we've been given back in response from IRS and Social Security, which of course makes a big difference in terms of people being able to file for their income tax return, their stimulus checks, and also their retirement monies. And we've been able to do that in the time since I was appointed interim manager with Ms. Robinson's hard work and with our being able to enlist the aid of Congressman Yoho's office and establishing a contact person at Social Security that we could deal directly with so that we could understand the problem and address it. So again, I'm pleased with the way staff is stepping up and working with and resolving issues that have been of concern to our employees. That was the first issue I got hit with when I was named interim. I was getting phone calls and emails and stopped on the street about those issues, and we believe they have all been resolved now. Now I say all, there's going to be an outlier problem somewhere where we'll have to patch something up, but the vast majority have been corrected. Finally, I'll mention that on Wednesday, a team is scheduled to come from the state to provide free COVID testing to our employees. It'll be a mouth swab, not the more intrusive nasal swab. We have provided information to our employees. There's a brief survey that they've been asked to take to see how many of them are interested. It'll be a drive-through process at the county facilities there on Pearl Avenue. And as I said, free of charge. Drive-through, there'll be a state team there that'll be suited up and in a position to make the swab or take the swab and get the testing done. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary, and we're right now today started the process of determining how many of our employees are interested in taking advantage of that free test process. I'm sure that all of you would be also welcome to engage in that if you wish. So with that, there are things that we're working on, we're excited about working on, and I look forward to us making great progress during these coming weeks and months.
Okay, appreciate that. Job well done, and kudos to staff for the great work that they've done as well. Also to ELC and the health department for the work that the policy team has done during this pandemic. And also, Mr. Holmes, I think there was one more thing. You had a special treat for staff that you've been conjuring up for next week. You want to share a little bit about that?
Well, actually, I have to share credit for that with you. If you look at the faces of our people, not just our people, all people, this change of routine has been taxing on a lot of different people. And in talking to staff about doing something, anything that we might do to sort of improve morale. Talking to the mayor, we decided that next Friday we would arrange for a barbecue event for all of our employees. The details of it have not yet quite been put together, but it will happen. We will barbecue it if we have to barbecue it ourselves. The mayor and I indicated he's volunteered. I don't know whether either of us can cook well enough for anybody to want to eat it, but if that's what it takes, then that's what we'll do.
We've secured a better cook. So we've got Emmanuel Robinson agreed to cook for us.
All right. And then following that, we're going to exercise some executive privilege and give our staff the rest of the afternoon off, obviously making certain that we maintain level of service in those areas where we have to, but just sort of a thank you and a recognition that our staff has been working with some new, I guess, circumstances and in a different environment as everyone else is. And we have people who have kids at home that they're self-teaching, not that they don't love their children and aren't up to the task, but I think we'd all agree that that's an additional obligation for a parent who's been used to sending their kids off to school, and now they're trying to teach their kids at home and go about doing all of their other activities and work functions. And we just want to say that we recognize it. We understand that you're working hard with the changes of staff. That's an issue too. None of us like change particularly. So that's kind of something we're doing to try to build some team some team unity and also show our thanks. So that'll be next Friday afternoon.
So definitely, they deserve it. There are a lot of studies out that talks about the psychological impacts of COVID on everyone. This new sense of normal has been critical, and we've got some folks who've not had a day off in weeks or months as they deal with these issues continuously. And I think it's just an opportunity for us all. We can't. We're still practicing social distancing and doing all the things that we can do, but I think we can creatively find ways to just say, hey, we appreciate you for your efforts and the work that you're doing. And so that's what we want to do with our staff. And so definitely, again, hats off to you, Mr. Holmes, for that. Mr. Yule, you have anything for us at the airport?
Sir, since the COVID virus pandemic started, naturally traffic has slowed down, but I'm pleased to report that while we were having this meeting that a large jet pulled up. I believe it's the Bass Pro Shop jet pulled up, so hopefully that's a sign that things are going to get going and step in a positive step.
Hey, well, let's make sure Mr. Morris gas is up too.
Yes, sir. We need to get back there. We're putting together some numbers representing what we think the COVID virus pandemic has done against us economically. So we'll have that ready for Mr. Holmes and Ms. Becker here pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
And that's we're trying to get the nose above the horizon here.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Griffith.
Yes, sir. Just an update on our inmate work crews. We're still getting word that we shouldn't expect them anytime soon. So please be reminded that we're down approximately 10 staff people, just including those two crews. But we did get some good news out of our lobbyist, Lisa Hurley. She reached out to the Department of Corrections, and it does appear that they are considering a credit or refund to all their local government partners for this time that we haven't been serviced.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cartwright. Chief Shaw.
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Ms. Becker.
Hello, everyone. I first want to start by thanking Ms. Harris for her service to the Finance Department. 28 years, I believe it was. That's a long time to be dedicated to the city. So I appreciate her and her support while she broke me in these past couple of years. So I just want to start by saying I appreciate her. I sent an email to you all yesterday. I believe my days are kind of starting to get mixed, but I will need your goals and priorities for the budget by end of day tomorrow. If you have any priorities that you would like to see, we are working diligently through the budget. I appreciate all of the department heads for working with me and being extremely conservative. I also would like to go ahead and schedule each of you about an hour and a half to do one-on-ones the week of June 15th through the 19th. If you could send me your availability, that would be great. Much like we've done in the past, I will give you a guide, a budget guide to show you where we're at, what the changes are, citywide effects, that sort of thing, so that we can easily go through this budget. And if you have any questions or concerns or revisions, that'll give me enough time to make those changes and bring back to you at a workshop in July.
Okay. Chief Grimes.
Good evening. Thank you. Thanks for I guess, Mr. Holmes, for your shout out earlier. It was just had the opportunity to work in that industry really close for about 20 years. So sometimes experience pays off in some of those unique situations that we can handle. Business as usual at the fire department. I'd like to report we got a good, healthy staff for 2 more weeks. So I'm very thankful for that. We've finished up our interview processes. They're in the HR process now to hire 2 of our 3 employees that we have vacancies for. They got finished with their interviews yesterday. We've got some initial numbers to Ms. Becker. We sent out earlier today on request from Mr. Holmes for the initial COVID expenses we've had so far. So those are into her. So we got an idea where we're at so far by department, by the city. So that should be to you probably in the morning, I would think. So that's about it. Thank you.
And just for the commission's information, the Florida League of Cities also offers a $6,000 matching grant through FMIT, which is the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust Fund, because that's who we use for our workers' comp and our liability insurance, and they will actually match any expenses that we pay as it relates to COVID at $6,000 on an annual basis.
I failed to mention that with Ms. Tucker's diligent work this week as well, we've also got turned in for a FEMA assistance to firefighter grant for COVID related PPE for purchases now, and it extends out into 12 months. Ms. Tucker, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was $77,000 that we applied for to FEMA this week. We'll see how that comes out. It's going to probably take, I wouldn't think hear back for a couple months anyway, but it is applied for, and we'll move forward with applying for the Florida League of Cities grant.
Yeah, I got word that they're moving pretty fast on those. I appreciate that, Chief. Thank you. Got anything from legal? Ms. Thomas?
No, nothing at this time, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
Mayor, even during the pandemic, we are still hiring. We have positions available in the sanitation department. We're looking for a mechanic and a refuse collector. We're still taking applications for the fire department and the PD. We also need a part-time clerk at the airport. So applications can be processed online. They can be picked up at City Hall. They can also be emailed to hr@palatka-fl.gov.
Okay. Can you also include that information in the chat section of the YouTube live so that people will have that information as well?
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody from logistics have anything to report for us? Cultural resources and recreation? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to Commissioner reports. Vice Mayor.
I'd like to thank our people, our staff and stuff for all the hard work they've done. It's not easy all the time to be out there. And we get a lot of criticisms, but we've been hearing a lot of good stuff for the people who work for us. And I think we need to always let them know that we say thank you. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Bohr.
Basically, I'd like to give a big, huge a shout out to our city staff for the outstanding work that they perform. We're getting the water services restored back to the critical business areas, healthcare facilities in St. John's Avenue and Moody Road corridor. And, again, it was my understanding that they pretty much executed a very flawless strategy, and it prevented the need to have a boiling water alert pushed out or what have you. So again, I want to thank the team enough and give them kudos to all involved staff, and way to go, Team Palatka. Last but not least, I guess I will also thank all of those who gave their time and effort to the city, worked tirelessly for years or what have you with a lot of dedication. We'd like to thank those again and their families for allowing them to be part of our city. And we also would like to welcome again Ms. Valeria Thomas for her coming on board in the interim process. And again, we'd like to also thank Mr. Holmes for accepting the huge role that he has taken on. And he's done some things that we haven't had done across several different city managers and even interims as well as full-time guys. So a big, huge thanks to him for his work that he's put in. And also thank Ms. Robinson for the work that she's worked with Don on and helping with getting the staff insurance as well as Social Security as well as income tax. So those things were huge. It meant a lot to our employees. So I want to thank everybody involved for doing everything that they could do to help support the people that we care about the most, and that's our staff and our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
I too would like to officially again welcome Attorney Holmes to his new position as city manager, as well as Attorney Thomas for stepping in such a vital time for our community. I'm already seeing the camaraderie being built amongst staff and our citizens, and it means the world to me. And so I'm excited about the moves that we are making as a city, and I just look forward to continuing to build the camaraderie that we desperately need with our staff. To staff, thank you so much for leading with integrity. Thank you so much for leading the pandemic, oftentimes being away from family and friends. We sincerely thank you. And that's from the top to the bottom of the totem pole, which to me, no one is at the bottom of the totem pole, but to everyone that has a vested interest in the movement of the city, we sincerely thank you from the bottom of our heart. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner McCaskill.
Okay, I also want to thank Mr. Holmes and Attorney Thomas for accepting these positions and welcome them aboard. I want to thank staff for all of their hard work during this pandemic, as well as my fellow commissioners. I want to provide an update from the advisory council that met for the Small Business Development Center. We met on Friday, May 8th, and they provided us with an update of the monies that were brought in from the bridge loans. They were able to obtain and close 9 bridge loans with a total amount of $425,000. There were 43,000 loans submitted statewide, and I think for us to have a seat at the table and be able to bring in some funding, that was really that was really good. Cheryl Lynch worked effortlessly in this process to bring the monies in, so I want to thank them for it, for her hard effort and her work. The CARES Act has been approved to help Cheryl with consulting hours and helping businesses to move forward and recover from this process. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank all of you commissioners for your hard work during this pandemic, along with our staff. And we're really excited about where we're going. I got a couple things for you. First up, we were creative in finding ways to help our young people to continually celebrate great moments. Wesley Roberts, senior at Palatka High School, recently signed a national letter of intent to go play football at Southeast Missouri State University. Wesley is a phenomenal basketball player who was reluctantly convinced to go play football by me. I just aggravated him. And now this kid has done a great job. Coach Fels, kudos to you and also to Wesley's parents. But I also want to give a special thanks to Mr. Eddie Cutright and Winston Fletcher for creatively coming up with an opportunity on the roof of the River Center with us to come up with a socially distanced signing date for him and his family. We had a handful of family members there. We had young folks out. Everyone was in their mask. They were all 6 feet apart during this event. And we literally, Palatka Daily News participated, and it ended up being a great moment for Wesley, along with a couple of his friends. They also posted a video really telling their friends to be conscious of what goes on during COVID as well. And so we definitely want to congratulate Wesley and also thank these young men for their ability to be influencers to other young folks and let them know that COVID actually is something that people of all ages should be conscious of, and that we need to continue with our positive hand health as well as our social distancing. Also, we're going to have a stay-at-home block party courtesy of our recreations department. It's a stay-at-home cyber house party of sorts where we will have various DJs participating in this all day long, all genres of music. We've contacted our local radio stations to participate as well. We've got guest DJs that will be there. So for all our citizens on May 23rd, Memorial Day weekend, there's no blue crab, but we've got a stay-at-home house party where you can start at 10 a.m. with gospel and you can work your way up to hip hop by 5 p.m. And we've got every genre of music out there. We want our folks to tune in. So everybody from Garth Brooks to Al Green, we got you. And we'll throw in a little plies maybe. So guys, we want everyone to come on board, have an opportunity to just have a joyful time during Memorial Day weekend as we continually practice social distancing and we continually listen to the governor's orders as we reopen Florida. And then the last thing that we have is Robbie Carrera. I give her all the credit. She actually sent me a message with an idea that came from Ybor City over in the Tampa area. And the idea was to take for our downtown business district to be able to have dinner to have a socially distanced dinner in the streets. As you know, many of our restaurants are limited to 25% occupancy, except for outdoor seating where you can socially distance. And so we're gonna try to put forth an event with our community partners of dining in downtown, where we actually put tables out and we try to get our restaurateurs to have a dining event during Memorial Day weekend so that they can actually try to recoup, additional funds, and also to give our citizens an opportunity to come out and be socially distanced. And as we highlight local businesses in our downtown area as well, and we're hoping that some of our business owners will stay open a little later on those days so that we can actually push the event forward. And so it's going to be a collaborative effort between all of our departments to make sure that this event takes place, and it's going to be a community effort so that we can get people to patronize our downtown businesses. So those are the things that we have in place. We're creatively moving forward. I think Mr. Holmes has come into this position over the last few weeks, and he was working very full time on his interim position, and I don't expect anything less from him. You know, the guy usually gets to work 4 days in the morning and doesn't leave until everything's done, and so we expect that same work happen from him, as well as we move forward with council. And so, guys, welcome officially to the team in your new capacities. We're glad that you've unretired and that you haven't retired in Don's case. And so I'm just glad that we're moving forward and we end the meetings with smiling faces. So again, guys, thank you all. Just remember that those executive orders still exist for our local business. For our local businesses, we know that many of you have taken hits, and we know that you guys have been very, very patient in the reopening. We will continue to give you information as it relates to the reopening strategies of Putnam County and move forward. Vice Mayor, you got something else for us?
Yes, I just found out that Ms. Robertson just completed some school. Maybe she can tell us what that is.
She went to Bethune-Cookman, so we won't talk about it.
Oh, well, if they just finished, and we want to say congratulations because she's moving on to help better herself and others. Because when she helps herself, she helps others.
Congratulations to Deborah Robinson for getting her bachelor's degree from Bethune-Cookman University. Let's give it up for her.
Yay.
Hell Wildcats.
Hell Wildcats, thank you.
That's our school too, because it almost was here. Miss Bethune.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Hey, the roots of the university are right here with the Palatka Mission School that Mary McLeod Bethune started in 1899 and closed in 1904. So definitely. And so again, congrats on that. Just an exciting time for us, even without it being festival season. We're going to start our testing in this community, and we just want everybody to just be conscious as you go out. I see a lot of folks still not out with masking, not socially distancing, thinking that this thing is over. And I want us all not to be afraid, but to be conscious that the precautions that we take may not only protect us, but protect someone who's very dear to us. And so we're going to continue on until Florida reopens, and even after, to make sure that we do everything necessary to protect our staff, our citizens, and ourselves. And so let's all continually be mindful and be blessed. At this time, our meeting is adjourned.
You're right.